I'm a 43-year-old dude, and my wife, Sharon, clocks in at 40. We've been married for a sweet 16 years and have 2 kids, a spunky 14-year-old daughter and a rambunctious 9-year-old son. Our marital journey had its share of turbulence early on, but we soldiered through those stormy days, emerging supposedly stronger. We were both pretty green when we got married, but we believed love was enough to bulldoze through any challenge life hurled at us. Looking back, that might have been just youthful optimism. Sharon has been at the helm of a high-profile advertising agency for 3 years now, and I've been tinkering away as an engineer for the past 7. Both of our careers have been fruitful, furnishing our family with a comfortable lifestyle. We prided ourselves on being hands-on parents, carving out time for family adventures, ensuring we crafted enduring memories no matter how hectic our schedules got. I fancied myself a decent dad and a devoted husband, even though I occasionally fumbled in my efforts to keep Sharon happy. The revelation that she was entangled in a long-term affair blindsided me completely. Over the last couple of years, Sharon's demeanor towards me turned frosty. She would often belittle me, endlessly comparing me to her suave boss. Yes, that boss. She complained that he would have handled situations better than I did, and often highlighted how wonderfully he treated his wife. I felt perpetually inadequate. If I dared ask what I could do to rekindle our romance, she'd scoff and say, "You should already know what to do without asking." Desperate for guidance, I scoured books and the internet. Someone else had to have the magic formula, right? Yet, every attempt to please her seemed doomed to fail, met with either tepid gratitude or outright criticism. The woman I thought I knew was vanishing before my eyes, and I was at my wits' end trying to salvage our connection. We were quite chummy with her boss and his wife. Our kids were friends, and our families frequently mingled at BBQs, park outings, and arcade days. It was natural for me to confide in her boss about our marital struggles, considering him a good friend who often offered sage advice. Little did I know the depth of the betrayal that was unfolding. But let's get back to the fateful discovery. Sharon's recent behavior had been alarmingly dismissive, with her even suggesting that our marriage might be on the rocks unless it shaped up. This was a shock to me because, until then, I had believed our foundation was rock solid. One peculiar night, as laughter erupted from her side of the bed over some mysterious texts, my curiosity piqued. I leaned over slightly to catch a glimpse of her phone screen. Instantly, she snapped the phone away with a glare, barking, "What do you think you're doing?" Her aggressive tone took me by surprise, hinting at a deeper secrecy I hadn't anticipated. I told Sharon I just wanted to catch the joke too, and she snapped that it was none of my business before storming off to the bathroom. That moment, deep down, I knew something was terribly wrong, like an affair was unfolding right under my nose. Yet I had no concrete evidence. The next day, I confronted her directly. A big mistake. She exploded, vehemently denying everything. She wouldn't let me near her phone, but my gut was screaming for the truth. That night, after a lot of tension, she finally handed over her phone, albeit reluctantly. I noticed immediately that most of her messages to certain contacts were wiped clean. Some chats were just fragments, making little sense. Others seemed oddly interrupted. I handed the phone back without a word. We didn't discuss it further until about a month later when a buddy of mine helped me try to recover those deleted texts. By then, Sharon had switched to using a new phone primarily, barely touching the one she gave me. We managed to piece together enough to confirm my worst fear. She was indeed having an affair, and yep, with her boss. Confronting her right away seemed futile. She'd only wriggle her way out. So I waited, though inside, I was crumbling. The thought of how this could devastate our kids haunted me. I broke down in front of my friend. Despite the betrayal, I wasn't ready to let go of our marriage. Driven by a mix of despair and hope, I bought a book titled How to Help Your Spouse Heal from an Affair. I know it might sound naive, but I was grasping for anything that could mend things. I planned to talk it out with Sharon that Saturday, hopeful to steer us back on track. However, she claimed an emergency at work had come up and told me not to wait up. Suspicious, I called her office on Saturday. No answer. They weren't even open. I tried reaching her phone, but again, no luck. She waltzed in at 2 a.m. on Sunday, headed straight for the shower, and then to bed. When I questioned her lateness, she brushed it off, sticking to her earlier story. I was done playing games. I never gave her the book. My pain seemed invisible to her, or worse, irrelevant. Desperate for some semblance of stability, I reached out to her boss's wife, needing to know if she was in the dark as much as I was. The news hit her like a ton of bricks. She was eager to confront her husband, but I cautioned her. He'd likely deny everything, just like Sharon. We met at her place to strategize, sharing the scant evidence we had. She agreed we needed more solid proof before blowing this wide open. So we started our own little investigations. She had an easier time. Her husband was so arrogant he hadn't bothered to erase incriminating messages from his phone. The bits I'd gathered earlier now clicked into a clearer picture. We discovered the affair had been going on for 2 years. The rage and betrayal we felt were palpable. She was out for blood, and frankly, so was I. They had their trysts everywhere. Her place, my place, upscale hotels, even during business trips. Reading through their messages about these escapades was downright revolting, and they even exchanged photos. We decided against looking at those. Some scars are just too deep to risk. We craved revenge, but not by stooping to their level of deceit. We agreed that if they were so enamored with each other, they could have one another. We simultaneously slapped them with divorce papers. They never saw it coming. We played our parts perfectly until everything was set for the final act. Through cooperation with the boss's wife, we knew exactly where and when they'd be next, booked for a fun weekend at a certain hotel. I went there myself, alongside a sheriff. I waited in the lobby while the sheriff prepared upstairs. Soon my wife, clad just in a bathrobe, was summoned. Her confusion turned to panic when she saw me. "What are you doing here?" she stammered, clearly unprepared for this encounter. The sheriff confirmed her identity and handed her the papers. Her shock was palpable, a sight I found grimly satisfying, though I had no desire to gloat. As I turned to leave, she grabbed my arm, desperate for answers. I simply stated, "You had an affair. I'm leaving you." Her protests grew loud, and the sheriff had to intervene. She released me, tears streaming down her face, pleading for a chance to explain, claiming misunderstandings and misplaced blame. But I had seen enough. I left swiftly. Back home, I heard she had alerted her boss, who was equally rattled. He too was served his papers by his wife. We made sure they had no time to strategize, hitting them as hard as they had blindsided us. My divorce is set to finalize in a few months. Hers might drag on a bit longer. Both are contesting the divorces, neither wanting to end their marriages. They claim it was just physical, nothing serious, typical excuses of those caught in the act. They pleaded for forgiveness, to mess the mess they created. I confronted my wife about her expectations from her reckless actions. She claimed she was just going with the flow, acting out of character. I called her foolish. Some friends and acquaintances have branded me harsh for not giving her another chance. My kids, who know the basics of what happened, wish we could stay together. Despite this, and the fact that we still share a home, my resolve is weakening. She's attending therapy and has even started reading the book I initially bought to mend things, claiming profound remorse and readiness to do anything to make amends. All I've told her is she's just sorry she got caught. She once snapped, calling me bitter and unable to move past the negativity, though she apologized later. But I know deep down, that's how she truly sees me. The boss's wife and I are still in touch, and my wife despises that. She suspects that I might start a revenge affair, or that my refusal to reconsider our relationship stems from my interactions with her boss's wife. She's pleaded with me to cut ties, just as she has with her boss. But I countered, telling her it's ludicrous to equate our situations. We did nothing wrong. Why should I heed her advice now? Honestly, I think I'm past the point of no return. I've lost all respect for her. Yet, she persists, trying to share her mental and emotional journey through the affair. To me, they sound like mere excuses, so I don't engage. She's pressed for couples therapy, but I've heard too many stories of therapists who blame the betrayed partner, so that's a hard pass from me. She's also suggested reading books on infidelity together. But what's the point if we're heading for divorce? She's been pushing for intimacy, claiming it's not manipulation, but a way to show her love. I corrected her. You mean show love now, when it's convenient? People around me, including my mom, are getting frustrated. They argue that people err, and that she's realized through her missteps how much she truly loves me. But I refuse to be anyone's fallback plan. I feel terrible for how I treat her because, despite everything, I still love her. Yet, there's also deep-seated hatred. Am I being too harsh? She's putting in the effort, but I'm just so detached. Should I rethink the divorce? Some say I'm rushing into it and that I'll regret it. But what's true anymore? A mistake is a minor error. A 2-year-long affair, both emotional and physical, conducted behind my back in our own home, is a profound betrayal. She didn't just make a mistake. She disregarded me entirely for 2 years. Every interaction we had during that time was under false pretenses, as she never gave me the chance to choose whether to stay or go, knowing the full truth. I'm sticking to my decision. This wasn't a fleeting lapse, it was a daily deception, prioritizing her boss over our relationship. Our marriage, as I knew it, is done. Whether we could start anew is a different question altogether. As for updates, currently my wife and I are in a surprisingly amicable place, not because we're reconciling. I'm still pursuing the divorce. In short, she's still pleading for another chance, doing everything she can to win me back. But I can't see past the length and depth of her betrayal. If it had been a brief slip, maybe, but 2 years is just too profound a deceit. I've attended a few therapy sessions with her, not because I've softened, but because I'm not heartless, and I still care about her. One therapy session was quite revealing. It showed that my wife genuinely regrets her actions. She hasn't handled the aftermath perfectly, but she's been putting in significant effort. However, the second session turned chaotic when she expressed her frustrations about my ongoing contact with the boss's wife, fearing a revenge affair. That session was the angriest I've been throughout this ordeal, and it sparked a heated argument because I wouldn't agree to cut off contact as she wanted. Eventually, we reached a compromise when I assured her that my interactions were purely platonic. There would be no revenge affair. I don't owe her that reassurance, but until our divorce is finalized, I want to maintain my integrity. I've attended a few more therapy sessions, not out of a desire to salvage our marriage, but to observe her progress. After the divorce, I plan to step back gracefully. Meanwhile, the boss's wife is proceeding with her divorce, which her husband is contesting fiercely. Like me, she's firm in her decision, and we often share our challenges and support each other on tough days. Our relationship remains strictly friendly. My children are coping well. They understand, in a way suitable for their ages, why the divorce is necessary, even though they wish it weren't happening. Post-divorce, my wife left her job at the advertising company and found employment elsewhere. She claims to have cut all ties with her former boss and has even sought advice from online forums on how to salvage our marriage. Reading these forums initially, I couldn't grasp why anyone would stay with a partner who cheated, but seeing my wife strive to improve has made me understand the temptation to reconcile. She's not a monster. She's a person who made terrible choices and is now learning from them. She's offered everything imaginable to get a second chance. The closer the divorce gets to being final, the more at peace I feel. Yet we recently had an in-depth discussion about possibly trying again post-divorce. She suggested a post-nuptial agreement, which I'm not entirely against, but it would require a long journey of rebuilding trust before I'd even consider it. A part of me desires this divorce as a form of justice, the only retribution I can seek without sinking to the level of deceit myself. After sharing more details of her affair, my mom, who had been urging reconciliation, is now furious with my wife. Navigating this new family dynamic is challenging. As I stay the course, I'm reminded of all that was lost due to the affair, the money, time, and affection that was taken from our family. Stay strong, as I'm sure the emotional manipulations will intensify as the divorce nears its conclusion. She never prioritized our kids or me over those 2 years, a neglect that severely damaged my self-esteem, a loss that's irreplaceable. Now she's only making strides because she got caught. Honestly, I'm counting the days until I'm free from what feels like an endless drain on my spirit. Enough of that, let's move on to an update related to the so-called revenge affair. As many of you are aware, my wife is petrified I'll have a revenge affair because I'm still in contact with the boss's wife, Elena. She is younger, a model, runs a successful business, and is undeniably attractive, all of which sends my wife into a spiral of insecurity. The irony of her lecturing me about how 2 wrongs don't make a right is not lost on me, and though I have no intention of sinking to that level, her hypocrisy is infuriating. Every time I visit Elena, like I did yesterday, my wife oscillates between extreme sadness and clinginess. She's thrown herself at me numerous times in a desperate bid to ensure I don't retaliate in kind. I reject these advances, which only worsens things. It's astonishing how self-centered cheaters can be, focused only on their own pain, while those they've betrayed are left to piece together their shattered lives. Despite everything, our kids still play with Elena's kids. I always take my kids along when I visit Elena, but no, my wife still suspects I'd be as cruel as she was and sees any chance for an affair. Absurd. Elena's estranged husband is still trying to win her back, staying in their holiday home. It's hard to deny the satisfaction I feel seeing him face the consequences. He hasn't threatened me, probably because he knows I have significant leverage over him. He visits his kids when I'm not around, avoiding any interaction with me. I can't help but pity him. Currently, my wife has ramped up her apologies and is overwhelming me with affection, which I dismiss. We have a therapy session today, and I'm bracing myself to unload all the pain and frustration her actions have caused. The anger I feel is becoming too much to bear. If we're nearing our divorce, why should she care if I plan a date? She forfeited her right to expect my loyalty when she chose to cheat. Her issues need serious intervention, not just for our relationship, but for her own well-being. Although she seems regretful and eager to mend things, I can't see us reconciling. And now, on to update. It finally hit me. I thought I had wasted all these years on someone who ended up being nothing but a source of pain. But then I look at my kids, the beautiful moments we've shared. Those memories are precious and something I'll always cherish. But it's clear now, more than ever, I deserve better. The advice I've received lately has opened my eyes. She let me down in ways I can't ignore, and it's time for me to move on and seek a better future. It really diminished me when she poured her energy and attention into another man, energy she never seemed to have for me. Now, after everything, she's suddenly full of effort. She's pouring that same energy into us, attempting to make me happy in ways she never cared to before. Suddenly, she's become adventurous, especially in our intimate life, which, to be honest, was never mind-blowing, but I liked it for what it was. Seeing the graphic details in her texts with him only highlighted the depth of what I was missing. Now she's fervently trying to demonstrate how much she loves me, starkly contrasting her previous indifference, which was more than apparent. Now she respects my space, supports whatever I do, and goes above and beyond to honor my boundaries, something she rarely did before. She's trying to view me as the king. I always hoped to be in her eyes, but it feels too little, too late. She's now completely transparent with me about everything and brutally honest, even if it might upset me or embarrass herself. The consistent look of shame on her face is something new, and it's evident in every interaction. She deeply regrets the affair. The self-loathing and despair are written all over her face. It's distressing, and at times I even find myself feeling guilty for her misery, but I believe this process is necessary for both of us. Why can't I view this change positively? Why can't I accept her current remorse? Some might argue that many couples have long-term affairs and emerge even stronger. But why should my decision be based on emotional hope rather than a mature, objective assessment? There's a lingering fear that someone else might reap the benefits of this improved version of her, while I face the uncertainty of starting anew with someone else. Why not fight for this relationship when everything might point to a potentially good future? These are the arguments and questions I've been wrestling with. However, my response remains steadfast. I cannot and will not accept disrespect. Initially, I might have been willing to overlook certain behaviors, but I've since awakened to the reality of the situation. This note is for those who've reached out to me privately, constantly inquiring about my situation. I'm planning to spend this Christmas with my entire family and then finalize my separation from my wife. I've decided to clear the fog of excuses that clouded my judgment and move on entirely from the idea of us. There will be no dating or second chances. We are conclusively over. My wife isn't the villain of this story, and I sincerely wish her happiness, but it's clear it cannot be with me. She has shown me who she is. Today, I reached out to Elena and invited her to dinner after the holidays as a gesture of thanks for her unwavering support during my lowest moments. She graciously accepted, and I am looking forward to it. It's important to clarify that this dinner is merely an expression of gratitude for the solidarity we shared throughout this ordeal, and nothing more. My emotions have been so tumultuous these past few years that the thought of another relationship never really crossed my mind. And yes, it's just dinner with Elena, nothing more, unless something naturally develops from there. But as the divorce nears its final stages and I realize I actually have options, one option has consistently been right there. As for her ex, I couldn't care less about him. The idea of marriage seems flawed to me now, and although my divorce hasn't been too tumultuous, it's still costing me a lot financially. The whole institution of marriage feels like a sham at this moment. I don't mean to sound so cynical, and I hope this doesn't offend anyone, but I'm quite jaded. I gave the best years of my life to a woman from whom I received very little in return. My wife should have always given me her best effort. She wanted me to commit to a lifetime with her, to be faithful, to provide for and raise her children. She chose me for these roles, but she didn't give me her best. She reserved that for someone else. She diminished me while elevating him. She neglected me but was attentive to him. She went out of her way to impress him in ways she never did with me. She was demanding of me, but gave freely to him. And now, suddenly, she wants to be the wife of the year? Please. If all this love, support, and desire were genuine, she would have shown it to me instead of him. There might be some remorse now, but you don't carry on a 2-year affair, providing someone else the things your husband never received, unless you truly do not value, respect, or love your spouse. There's a good chance she'll learn from this, and perhaps become a better partner to someone else in the future, never cheating again. And while it must be infuriating to think someone else might benefit from the lessons she learned at the expense of our marriage, it doesn't mean she's worth staying with. Her growth came too late, and at too great a cost. My heart. It's time to move forward and find someone who doesn't need to shatter my world to learn how to value and respect me. Update. Officially divorced and the date with Elena. It's official. My ex-wife and I are permanently separated. The divorce was finalized almost 3 weeks ago. In the days that followed, I grieved as though I had lost a loved one. It hit me extremely hard, realizing my marriage had failed so spectacularly. I've never cried so hard since the day I discovered the affair. It was undoubtedly one of my lowest points. Everything has been organized for my ex, partly for the sake of our children. She's moved out and is now living in an apartment, a significant downgrade that seems to depress her. She continues therapy and is still deeply engaged in studying infidelity, though I'm not sure why. We've had extensive discussions leading up to and following the divorce, with minimal physical contact. While I have no intention of rekindling anything with her, she remains the mother of my children, and I am committed to maintaining a healthy co-parenting relationship. Above all, I strive to be logical and fair in this situation. She wants to reconcile, but it's too risky for me to put myself back in that situation. Unfortunately, I'm not in the mood to give her that gift. This past weekend, I went to dinner with Elena, initially with no intentions other than to enjoy each other's company and chat. However, things took a flirty turn, and I must admit, I was reluctant to entertain the rapidly changing mood at first. Well, the night ended in a very passionate way. It was probably the most mind-blowing experience I've ever had. Elena is very much a giver, a stark contrast to my ex. I didn't plan for it to go that far, but we were both willing and things just happened. I learned quite a few new things, experiencing for the first time what it's like to be with someone genuinely enthusiastic about pleasing me, rather than it being the other way around. I don't think we'll take our relationship further, to be honest. I think the hormones and wine just got the best of us that night. She would like to, but I am undecided. I need to sort myself out emotionally, and I think she does as well. However, I feel very good about it. People might not like hearing this, but that night really helped a lot with my residual self-esteem issues. I felt desired, alive, and finally understood what I had been missing out on. I will never settle for robotic, passionless interactions again. What was more satisfying was knowing that I wasn't cheating and didn't compromise my morals. All things considered, I'm very proud of how I've handled all this. I wasn't perfect, but I did the best I could. I'm probably coming out very lucky compared to many betrayed husbands, even though I lost a substantial amount of money in the process. But it was because I was willing to absorb advice and listen to people with experience, rather than going in blind and hoping for the best. You and everyone who lent me an ear saved me from further destroying my self-worth. So often the assumption is that those who cheat are the more sexually adventurous and expressive, when in reality, they're often the neglectful and restrained partners. Final update. I'm okay. No accidents, no disappearing acts. I'm still here. Elena is now officially my girlfriend. She managed to settle her case with her ex regarding child custody and finances in a mature manner. She could have taken a more vengeful route, but she handled the situation gracefully. There's some friction between our children, which we are addressing as best as we can. We've started therapy for them to ensure they properly adjust and understand that while the relationship between Elena and me affects them, it does not dictate their own value or importance in our lives. This is challenging. Not everyone is fully on board. My daughter, my ex, and her ex do not get along well. There's tangible tension when they are near each other. It seems both of them blame the other for how things have unfolded. My ex still holds out hope for reconciliation and is likely frustrated that Elena is now a significant part of my life. Her delusions worry me. She attempted to cause a scene at a 4th of July party, which I had to shut down, though perhaps not as firmly as needed. I hadn't believed those who said she would pine for a reconciliation, but it turns out they were right. She's making desperate attempts to win me back. Elena is being patient as I handle this, but she's also growing tired of my ex's antics. And yes, my ex despises Elena. I thought my ex was on a path to self-improvement, but since I've moved on, she's unraveled. This baffles me. I treated her better than anyone else in my life, yet she reciprocated with contempt. But now that I've effectively moved on, she's bending over backward to regain my attention. I'm not sure if I should be angry or just dismissive. Respect yourself. Never ever accept disrespect from anyone, not even from those closest to you. Everyone deserves a healthy, fulfilling relationship. Never settle for scraps from your partner. Every committed relationship should include a healthy and fulfilling intimate life. If your partner isn't giving their all to you, but did so before with someone else or in an affair, do not tolerate it. I'm not advocating for pushing boundaries without consent, but simply communicate your dissatisfaction. If your partner isn't willing to meet your needs, do not settle for less than you deserve. It's okay to walk away from that. Communicate, communicate, communicate. I cannot stress how super important that is. If you're ever betrayed, only you can truly heal yourself. It took a long time for me to understand this.